So hello ma'am, this is my notes about Leia 4. My name is Omori Marliao Ki, third year college, block 3L, my code is CR098, schedule MTH 4 to 5:30. So first is law enforcement or public safety agencies. Generally, executive branch of government has the responsibility of implementing laws enacted by the legislative branch of the government. Section 1, Article 7 of 1987 Constitution provides that the executive power shall be vested in the President of the Philippines. The President is the head of the state and the chief of executive. Further, Section 17, Article 7 of the 1987 Constitution provides that the President shall have the control of all the executive department, bureaus, and office. He shall ensure that the law be faithfully executed, that executive department and respective bureaus and attached agency that promulgate implementing rules and regulation to guarantee that there is a proper execution of laws. Also, the office of the President has attached agencies aside from executive department that have the specific function in carrying out the status, laws, and jurisprudence. Office of the President. President Security Group is a joint AFP, PNP, PCG, BFP service unit. It's a Philippine Close Protection Agency. It is the primary agency concerned with the providing close-in security and escort to the President and the Vice President of Philippines, their immediately families, former President and Vice President of the Philippines, as well as visiting head of state. Perform straight protocol duties including honors guard duties. In a station at Malacanang Palace, the official residence of the President, members of the PSG also accompany the President on both domestic and overseas trip. The President Security Group also have other functions such as providing support to other government agencies. They assist the AFP and PNP in its anti-organized crime undertakings, usually authorized by the Office of the President. They also conduct company service effort in social or local communities and maintain the secure all facilities and transportation assets used by the officials of the President and the Vice President in doing its regular and non-regular functions. Special Reaction Unit is a part of the President Security Group which serves as its main counter-terrorist anti among the other 9 organic units. From time to time, the SRU has been called in to assist other Philippine laws enforcement military units in internal security activities and duties when their presence is needed. Number 2, Dangerous Drugs Board is a government agency tasked in carrying policies in dealing with illegal drugs in the Philippines. Mandated to the policy making and coordinating agencies as well as the National Clearing House of all matters pertaining to law enforcement and control of dangerous drugs, research and statistics on the drugs problem, and the training of personnel engaged in these activities. Philippine Drug Enforcement Agencies is the implementing arm of the Dangerous Drugs Board, is the lead anti-drug law enforcement agency responsible for preventing, investigating, and combating any dangerous drugs, controlled source, and essential chemicals within the Philippines. The agency is tasked with the enforcement of the penal and regulatory provision of the Public Act number 916, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002. Number 3. Optical Media Board. Organized by the virtue of Republic Act number 9239, known as Optical Media Act of 2003. Formerly known as the Videogram Regulatory Board, responsible for regulating the production, use of the distribution of the recording media in the Philippines. Some of the functions of OMB are the following. A. Call upon law enforcement agencies and the managing authorities in the economic zones for assistance in the implementation and enforcement of its decision, order, rules, and regulation. B. Apply for the obtained search warrant from any code or court of law or take into preventive custody any optical media and or material or the equipment including parts, accessories, and paraphernalia used for the mastering, manufacturing, or replication of optical media which are found in any premises in the OMB has reasonable ground to believe of the suspect that these are evidence of violation of the provision of this act. C. Conduct inspection by itself or in coordination with other completing agencies of the government at any time with or without prior notice of establishment or entities, including this within the economic zones, engaged in the activities as provided in Section 13 A, B, and C of this Act, and employ reasonable force in the event that the reasonable person or persons of such establishment or entity invades, obstruct, or refuse such inspection. D. Conduct inspection by itself or accordingly with others competence agency of the government, any with or without prior notice of establishment of the entities, including those within the economic zones, engaged in the activities as provided in Section 13 A, B, and C, and its employee reasonable force in the event that the responsible person or person of such establishment or entity invades, obstructs, and refuse such inspections for the purpose, and the agency of the OMB shall be considered agents in authority. Number 4. Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, created by virtue of the Republic Act number 7924, reforms planning, monitoring, and coordinative function, and in the process exercise regulatory and supervisory authority of the local government units concerning purely local matters, transport and traffic management, including the formulation, coordination, and monitoring of the policies, standard programs, and protects to the rationalize and the existing transportation operation, infrastructure requirements, and the use of first. Number 5. Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, or MTRCB. Filipino para sa matalino at responsableng panonood. In English, for intelligent and responsible viewing. Created by the virtue of the Presidential Decree number 1986, responsible for the classification and review of the television programs, motion pictures, and home videos, promote an environment leading to the authentic and responsible self-regulation in the film and television industry, initiate plans and cooperate with the movie and television industries and source of the fueling in the national economy. Empower the Filipino family, particularly parents and the grassroots level, such that the family members are able to evaluate the intelligently, choose media and entertainment content. Promote a value-based media and entertainment culture executive department. Number 1, Department of Agriculture is the government agency responsible for the promotion of agricultural development by providing the policy framework, public investment, and support service needed for the domestic and export-oriented business enterprises. Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources is the government agency responsible for the development, improvement, management, and conservation of the country's fisheries and aquatic resources. Reconstituted as the line of Bureau by virtue of the Republic Act No. 8550, Philippine Fisheries Code of the 1998. Bantay Dagat, also known as the Sea Patrol, are community-based volunteer organization in the Philippines that work with local and national government officials and within the 15 kilometers at the shore to the protected and marine environment, especially patrolling against illegal fishing, and to provide assistance in rescue operation. It is under the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BFAR, of the Philippines Department of Agriculture. Number 2, Department of Environment and National Resources is the primary agency responsible for the conservation, management, development, and the proper use of the country, environment, and the natural resources, specifically forest and grazing land, mineral sources, including those are the reservation and the watershed areas and the land of the public domain, as well as the licensing and regulation of the all natural resources as may be provided for by law in order to ensure equitable sharing of the benefit derived therefrom for the welfare at the present and future generation of Filipinos. Environmental Management Bureau formulate plans and policies are set appropriate environmental quality standard, water, air, and noise for the prevention, control of the pollution, and the protection of the environment. Develop and implement a research and development program in the support of the following one: environmental and compliance monitoring. Number 2, study of existing and potential environmental problems and issues. Promote public information and education to encourage the participation of the informed citizen and environmental quality planning, monitoring. And number 3, Department of the Finance is the government standard of the travel fiscal policy is to formulate revenue policies that will ensure funding that critical government programs that promote welfare among our people and accelerate economic growth and stability. Bureau of Internal Revenue. Power and the duties of the Bureau of Internal Revenues are: number 1, reduction and collection of all internal revenue fields and changes. Number 2, enforcement of all forfeitures, penalties, and fines conducted. within including the execution of the judgment in all cases decided in its or favor by the Court of the Tax Appeals and the Ordinary Court, Bureau of Customs. Reduction and collection of all internal revenue, tax fees, and changes. Enforcement of all furtives, penalties, and fines connected to 20th, including the execution of the judgment in all cases decided in its favor by the Court of Tax Appeals and the Ordinary Court. Duties of all bureaus present of the custom, modernized, and traffic Act of RA 10863 are the following: assessment and collection of custom revenue from the imported goods and other dues, fees, changes, fines, and penalties according to the whole or the CMTA. Simplification and harmonization of custom procedures to facilitate movement of goods in international trade. Behavior control to prevent entry of smuggled goods, prevention and suppression of smuggling and other custom, facilitation of security of international trade and commercial through the Informed Compliance Program. F. Supervision and control over the entrance and clearing of vessels of the aircraft engaged in the foreign commerce. Supervision and control over the handling of the foreign mails arriving in the Philippines for the purpose of collecting revenue and preventing the entry of the contraband. H. Supervision and control on the import and the export cargoes landed or stored in the prevailing airport terminal facilities, including container yards and the freight station, the protection of the government revenue and preventing of the entry contraband. I conduct a comparison or comparison study with the end of view of developing and recommending for the President a competitive companions on the remuneration system to the track and return highly qualified personnel while ensuring that the Bureau remain financially sound that sustainable. J. Exercise at the exclusive original jurisdiction over the foreign cases under the CMTA and enforcement of the CMTA and all other laws, rules, and regulation related to the custom administration. Department of Health hold the overall technical authority on health as its health policy maker and regulation institution. Its mandate in the development national plans, technical standards, and guidelines on health aside from the being regulator of all health service and products. The DOH is the provider of special terrified health and key service of the technical access to the health provided as the stockholders. Food and Drug Administration regulatory agency under the Department of Health, mandated to ensure and safety, officially or quality of health products, which include food, drugs, cosmetics, devices, biological vaccines, introverted domestic reagents, radiation emitting devices or equipment, protect and promote the right to health of the Filipinos people and to establish and maintain an effective health produce regulatory system response to the country's health needs to the problem. Number 5, Department of Interior and Local Government responsible for promoting peace and order, ensure that the provide public safety and strengthening local government capability aimed toward to the effective delivery of basic service and the citizen. Powers and functions. A. Assigns the President in the exercise of the general supervision over local governments. Advice to the President in the proclamating of the policies, rules, regulation, and the other issue on the general supervision over local government and the public order to safety. C. Establish and prescribe rules, regulation, and the other insurance, implementing laws of public order and safety, the general supervision local government, and the promotion of the local authority, community empowerment, and monitor compliance. D. Provide assistance toward the legislation regarding local governments, law enforcement, and public safety. E. Establish and prescribe plans, places, programs, and the projects to promote peace and order, to ensure public safety, and fulfill strengthen the administrative, technical, and fiscal capabilities of local government office and personnel. F. Formulate plans, policies, and programs which meet local emergencies arising from the natural and man-made disasters. G. Establish a system of conditional and cooperation among the citizen, local executive of the department to ensure effective and efficient delivery of basic service to the public. And H. Organize, train, equip primary for the performance of the policies function of police force for the natural escape of civilians in a character. National Police Commission is an agency mandated of the 1987 Constitution that the major police reform laws, Republic Act number 6975 and 8551, to administer the control of the Philippine National Police. Under the RA 8551, otherwise known as the PNP Reform and Organization Act of the 1998, the Commission's authority over the PNP were strengthened and expanded to the include administration of the police entrance, examination, conduct of the pre-charge, investigation of the police, analysis and irregularities, and summoning discerning police officers. N. Nature excellent and professionalism. A. Adhere to the values of the honesty, integrating dedication. P. Provide efficient, effective, and response service. O. Obey and respect rules of law. L. Listen to the client concerns. C. Commit ourselves to the principles of the transparency and accountability. O. Oversees the implementation of the Commission Police and the program of PNP. M. Mold the civilian police organization that promote the community welfare. Philippine National Police, a community and service-oriented agencies responsible for the maintenance and the peace and order to the public safety. The PNP shall be organized to ensure accountability and uprightness in policies exercised to the decreasing as well as achieve efficiently and effective of its member and units in the performance of the functions. The Philippine National Police shall, through information gathering and the performance its ordinarily police function, support that armed force of the Philippines of matter involving supervision and insurgency, except of the cases where the President shall call on the PNP to support the AFP in combat operation. In time of the national emergency, the PNP and the Bureau of the Fire Protection and the Bureau of Jail Management and the Penology shall upon the direction of the Philippines or the President assist the Armed Force in meeting in the national emergency. Bureau of Jail Management and Penology is mandated to direct, supervise the control of the administration and operation of all district, city, municipal jails nationwide to the range tasks of the safekeeping and development of the persons divided at liberty or PDL, power and functions. Formulate policies and guidelines and the administration of all direct city municipal jails nationwide. Implement strong security measures for the control of PDL, provides for the basic needs of PDL, conduct activities for the development of PDL. Improve jail facilities and promote the general welfare and the development of the personnel. Bureau of Fire Protection mandates and the functions be responsible for the preventing and the supervision of all destructive fires on building, houses, and other structures, forests, land transportation vehicles, and the equipment ships and vessels docked at piers or whatever around to the major sea, port, petroleum industry, installation plates, anchors, and other similar activities. Be responsible for the enforcement of the Fire Code of the Philippines, that PD 1185, and the other related laws. Shall have the power of the investigating all causes of the fire and if necessary, file the proper implement with the city of provincial prosecutor who has jurisdiction over the case, local government units, public orders and safety office, traffic management office, barangay public safety office, barangay tanod, barangay peacekeeping and the security officer of barangay, police safety of officers, the lowest level of law enforcement officers in the Philippines. Department of Justice is the government principal law agency, service at the government, prosecution, administration of the government, criminal justice system, administration of the criminal justice system, the DOJ investigation at the commission of the crimes and prosecutes offenders through the National Bureau of the Investigation or NBI and the National Prosecution Service or NPS, respectively. Likewise of the DOJ administration, the probation of the correction system of the country through the Bureau of Corrections or the Board of Pardons of the Parole of BPP and the Parole and the Probation Administration of PPA. National Bureau of Investigation functions: A. Investigate crime and other offenses against the law of the Philippines, both on its own, investigate that the public interest may require. B. Assist when the officially request in the investigation of detection of the crime and the other offenses. C. Act as national clearinghouse of the criminal records and other information for use of all prosecuting of the law enforcement entitles in the Philippines of the identification record of identify marks, characteristic, and the ownership of the possession of the firearm, that is, bullets fired therefrom. D. Give technical help of the all prosecuting of the law enforcement office, agencies of the government, and the court which may ask for the services. E. Extend its service and the integration of cases of the administrative or civil in nature which the government is interested. F. Establish the maintain up to the date of the scientific crime laboratory and the conduct of researches in further realms of the scientific knowledge in the criminal investigation. G. Coordinate with the national or local agencies in the maintenance of the peace and order. Undertake the instruction and training of the representative number of the city of municipal peace officers requests of their respective superior along effective methods of the crime investigation and detection in order to ensure the greater officing in the discharge of the duties. Bureau's Immigration is the immigration regulatory and control body of the Philippines functions. Act as well primary enforcement with the Department of the Justice of President of the Philippines, ensuring that all foreign viewers within the territorial jurisdiction comply with existing law. B. Assist the local and international law enforcement agencies in security that tranquility of the state against foreign wars present or state that demand tasks of national security, public safety, of public morals, and public health. And C. Act of the Chief Repository of all immigration records pertaining to the entry, temporary, sojourn, administration, residence, and the departure of the all foreigners in the country. Bureau of Correction is charged with the custody of rehabilitation of the national offenders who have been sentenced 3 years or imprisoned or more than functions. A. Safekeepers prisoners converted by the court of 3 years and 1 day above the same sentence of the prison. B. Prevent the prisoner from the committing crimes. C. Provide the caring needs. D. Ensure that rehabilitation programs are made available to the inmates for the physical, intellectual, and spiritual development. E. Development livelihood program to assist inmates earn a living and develop their skills while they're in prison. Number 7. Department of the National Defense is responsible of guarding against the internal and external threats to the peace of the security of the country. Is also responsible for disaster perpetration management in the country. Armed Forces of the Philippines is also responsible for defending the country through the combat and operations. Serve as the protector of the Filipinos and the key player of the national building. Office of the Civil Defense. Service of the implementing arm of the National Disaster Risk Reduction of the Management Council or NDRRC. At the primary mission of the Administration Comprehensive National Civil Defense of Disaster Risk Reduction of Management Program by providing leadership in the continuous development of strategic and systematic approaches as well as measure to reduce the vulnerabilities and the risk of hazard and manage the consequences of disasters. 8. Department of Trade and Industry in the main economic continuities that they enable to captive job is a governing generally include the business employees and consumers. As catalysis were intensified private sectors an active order to create that sustain economic growth to comprehensive industrial growth of strategy. Number 9, Department of Transportation. It is the responsible for the maintenance of explosions of available, efficient, and dependable transportation system as effective instrument for national recovery and economic progress. Philippine Ports Authority. It's a government outward control corporation under the Department of Transportation as a attached agency. It is responsible for financing, management, and operation of public ports through the Philippines except for the Port of the Cebu which is under the Cebu Ports Authority. Land of Transportation Office. It is the task of register motor vehicles, issue drivers, conductors, license, and the permits offers transportation laws, rules, and regulation, and adjudicate apprehensions cases, land of transportation, franchising regulator board, promulgate, administer, enforce, and monitor the compliance of the policies, laws, and regulation of public land transportation services. Philippine Coast Guard. It is mandated and responsible to perform the maintain, search, and the secure maritime law enforcement, maritime security and safety, maritime environmental protection, and maritime security. Maritime Industry Authority, responsible for integrating the development, promotion, and regulation of the maritime industry in the Philippines. Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines is responsible for implementing policies on civil aviation to assure safe, economic, and efficient air travel. Mandates of the function established by the prescribed rules of regulation for the inspection and regulation of all areas owned operation in the Philippines and all facilities. B. Establish the prescribed and corresponding rules and regulation for the laws govern air transportation. C. Determine, fix, and the prescribed changes of all rates pertinent to the operation of public air facilities and services. D. Administer and operate the Civil Aviation Training Center or CATC. E. Operate the maintain national airports and navigators for the other similar facilities of compliance to ICAO. Bill of Rights. Concept. The Bill of Rights is the declaration of enumeration of all persons' right of privilege with the Constitution of designed to protect against the violation by the government or by the individual or by the group of individuals. It is the character of the liberties for the individual and the limitation upon the power of the state. Significance. The Bill of Rights is a guarantee that there are certain area of the person life, liberty, and the property which the governmental power may not touch. Article 3 Bill of Rights. Section 1. Right to life, liberty, and property. Section 2. Right against the unreasonable searches and services. Section 3. Every person has the right to keep his communication or corresponding a secret. Section 4. Freedom of speech, right to the freedom of assembly, the right of the petition. Section 5. Freedom of religion. Section 6. The liberty of the abode and the right of the travel. Section 7. The right of information. Section 8. The right of the firm of association. Section 9. The right of the just conversation. And Section 10. Non-impairment clause. And Section 11. Free access to the court. Section 12, the right of the person and clear custodial investigation. Section 13, the right of the bail and against for excessive bail. Section 14, right of the accused, right to the due process of the law, commercial cases, incident unit, and provinciality. The right of the convert once associate tracing of turns admission. Section 15, right to appellate corps. Section 16, right to expedite disposition of the cases. Section 17, right against the self-incrimination. Section 18, the right to the political belief and aspiration. Section 19, the prohibition against cruel, degrading, or inhuman punishment. Section 20, non-imprisonment of the debts. Section 21, right against the double jeopardy. Section 12, ex post facto a law bill of attainder. Right to life. The constitutional protection of the right of the belief, not just a protection of the right to be achieved or the security of the person against the physical harm, to the right of the life of the right, good life, due process, kind of process, procedure relative made of the procedure which government agency must follow in the enforcement of the appliance of the laws. He essence and express of the law which years before the commenced. Number 2, substantive due process of the prevailing of abolition laws, equal protection of the law. The equal protection causes a specific constitutional gambling equality of the person. That equality the guarantees a legal equality, or it is usually put to the equality all person before the law. Search warrant, essential request of the valid search warrant. It must be issued upon probable cause what that the circumstances which would lead a reasonable district and prudent mean to believe that the offense has been committed and that the object set in connection with the offense in the place of the source to the searched. Probable cause must determine person by the judge. What are the constitution under source of the explosive personal responsibility of the issuing judge to satisfying himself expensive to the provision cost. Number 3, such judge must examine under the oath of affirmation of compliance to witnesses he may be provided. A judge is not required to personally examine the complainant and his witness out of the weight of submission of the court affidavits from the accused. Number 4, the warrant must particularly describe at the place of searched and the person of things to be seized. A search warrant may be said to the particular describe the things that says when the description is as specific as the circumstances will ordinarily allow the which the warrant officer may be guided in making search and seizing. Its purpose to prevent abuse of the official warrant by learning to him description of who as the speech or the size. Number 1, properties which the subject of the offense is stolen. Proceed to the fruit of the offense and the object including weapons, equipment, and other items used for intended to be used as the means of community of offense. Validity of search warrant. The search warrant shall be valid for 10 days from the date of accident may be served at any days within the said period. Therefore, it shall be avoided. B. If in time implementing the search warrant, its object or purpose cannot be accomplished in one day, the search can be continued by the following day or the day until the completed. C. If the object of the purpose of the search warrant cannot be accomplished within the 10-day, the validity period, the responsible police officer conducting the search must file before the issuing court an application for the extension of the validity period of said search warrant. Time of search. The warrant should be served during the daytime unless it is the provision of the warrant allowing service at any time of the day of the night. Authority of the police officers when conducting search. In the conducting of search, after the gaining notice of the purpose and the authorities, the police officers trans to the place of the search, he may break open any other or inner door or window or may part of the house that anything threatening to the implement of the warrant liberate himself or any person actually adding him when the unlawfully detained of the threatening. Prohibited acts of conduct of search, validity of search warrant, houses, rooms of other premises shall be searched except in the absence of the letter presence of two waiters of suffering age of demonstration of locality. B. The receipt shall likewise include items sized under the plan's view doctrine. The police officer must then leave a receipt in the police which upon the size of the property and the duplicate copy, therefore with any barangay officials having jurisdiction over the place search, and the police officer must write the delivered the property size of the judge who issue the warrant together with the inventory, therefore duty derived of the oath, allowable warrant, search and seizures. Search and seizures are normally unreasonable unless authorized by the validity issued search warrant of arrest. The constitutional provision against the unlawful search and seizure applies to the restraint directed only against the government and its agency, thus with the enforcement of the law. However, they possible find the remedially court in the code. A search mode identically that valid arrest and the person lawful arrested be searched for the dangerous weapons by the anything which may be used or which may constitute prior to the commission of the offense without a search warrant. The warrant search and the seizure as an incident to the lawful arrest may extend beyond the person of the arrested too much to the permission of surrounding under his immediate control. B. Search of moving vehicles. If the police officers who will conduct the search of reasonable or probable cause of belief before the search that either the motorist is the law offender will be part of investment of the investigating prevalence of the crime in the vehicle to the search of the vehicle may be stopped and subject to the extensive search. C. Seizure evidence in the plain view. Any object in the plain view is subject of the size of may be introduce the evidence. Requirements under the plain views doctrine are: number 1, the police officers must have prior justification for an intrusion of the otherwise must be position from which contributes a particular area. Number 2, the discovery of the evidence of plans views on anti-national. Or number 3, the immediately applies to the police officers that item observed may be evidence of the crime is valid subject of the seizure. D. When is the wherever the right there is consented search to the constitutive waiver, this constitutional right must appear was the right of the second of the person involved the knowledge their actual constructive of the existence of such a right. E. Searches under stop first rule. The police officer have the right to stop the citizen on the street, interrogate him and part of him of weapon, vehicles, or unusual conduct of convince him to the criminal activity exists. While the probable cause of not required to the conduct of stop the trees strictly holds that mere suspicion hunch will not validate that the stop the first is the nevertheless hold that mere suspicion of the hunch will the validate stop and freeze the agenti reason must exist in the light of the police officer experience and the surrounding condition to the warrant that believe that the person determined that as the weapon concerned about him the general interest of the effective crime prevention and detection which is underlines of recognition that the police officer may be under appropriate circumstances and an appropriate manner approach the person for the purpose of investigating possible criminal behavior and event without probable cause. Number 2, to the more passing interest of the safety of self-preservation, with the permit of the police officer, take step to assume himself that the person with the whom that deals with not armed with the quality weapon that could expediency and fatality used against the police officer, Malacos versus CA 283 SCRA of 176, F. Emergency and Agent Circumstances. A search warrant conduct the validity experiment of the cases, equivalent agency situation, and the police officers have the reasonable group to believe that comes of being committed. At no opportunity to apply for the search warrant from the courts because the latter were closed. If the police officer on reasonable grounds to the belief of the subject of engaged in the illegal activities, the information sufficient provide probable cause-effect warrantless such as insurance, arrest. Arrest is taking a person who custody in order that he may bond the answer for the commission of the offense. Generally guidelines. All arrests would be made only on the basis of valid warrant of arrest issued by a competent authority except of the instance where the law allows warrantless arrest. B. No violence or unnecessary force shall be used in making an arrest. The person shall be arrested shall not be subjected to any greater restraint than what is necessary under the circumstances. C. A general rule arrest of the case of man made of any day of the week and any time, day or night. D. Only judge and authorized to issue warrant of arrest. E. A warrant arrest is no longer needed to the accused is already unclear detention of the order of. So, silent features of Republic Act 7438. Any person arrested, detained under the custodial investigation shall all times of assisted by counsel. Number 2, any public officer, employee, or anyone acting under the order of his place who arrested, detained of investigation, any person for the commission of the offense shall inform the little in a language known as understood by him of his rights to remain silent and to complement an independent counsel prepared by his own choice. Number 3, the custodial investigation repeat shall be reduced to the written investigation office provided before such a report signed off. Thumb mark of the person arrested of the detained does not known has to read and write it shall be read and development explained him by the counsel or by assisting counsel provided by the investigatory officer in the language of direct known as such as acknowledged to detain the person, otherwise known investigation report shall be null for the void and no effect whatsoever. Number 4, any extrajudicial confession made by the person arrested, detained, and understand the under custodial investigation shall be written and signed by the such person in the presence of his counselor in the later absence upon the valid waiver. Number 5, a waiver by the person arrested or detained under the Procession Article 125 of the Revised Penal Code or under custodial investigation shall be written signed by such a person in the presence of the counsel, otherwise the waiver shall be ruled of the void, no effect. And number 6, any person arrested or detained or under custodial investigation shall be allowed visit or by the conference with a member of the immediate family or the medical doctor, priest, religious minorities chosen by him or by the any member of his immediate family according to the Commission of Human Rights of the any international non-governmental organization duly elected by the office president. The person immediately family shall be include his or her spouse, fiancé, parent or child, brother or sister, grandparent or grandchild, uncle and aunt, nephew, niece and grand or ward. Custodial investigation shall include the practice of the ensuing the investigation to the person is investigated in connection with the offense of this suspect to have committed without prejudice to the liability of inviting officer of any violation of the law. So, categories of police operation. Police operation are categories of the following. Number 1 is public safety operation. In A, search, rescue, ritual operation. B, fire drills. C, earthquake drills. And D, similar operation that promote public safety. Number 2, law enforcement operation includes A, service of warrant of arrest. B, implementation of search warrant. C, enforcement of visitorial powers and the chief. D, Philippine National Police and Unit Commanders. E, anti-illegal drugs operation. F, anti-illegal combining operation. G, anti-illegal logging operation. H, anti-illegal fishing operation. I, anti-illegal kidnapping operation. G, anti-kidnapping operation. K, anti-cyber crime operation. And L, similar operation that are conducted of the offense laws, status, executive orders, and ordinance. 3. Internal security operation includes A, counter-insurgency operations. B, counter-terrorist operation. And C, similar operation that are conducted in short of internal security. 4. The special police operation includes A, checkpoint operation. B, roadblock operation. C, civil distribution management and operation. D, police assistance and enforcement of demonetization, evacuation, injunction, and similar orders. E, police assistance in the implementation of the final court order and an order from OSHI's judicial bodies. F, hostage situation. G, visit board search and search on hub, maintenance by cell. And H, similar police operation that are conducted by the police unit with the specialized training on the particular mission of the purposes. And number 5, intelligence operation includes A, surveillance operation. B, counterintelligence. C, intelligence research. D, intelligence assist. And E, similar police intelligence operation conduct to gather information related to the security, public safety, and order. 6. Investigation operation includes investigation of crime accident. B, administration investigation. And C, similar investigation work necessary to determine facts. Number 7, scene of the crime operation or SOCO. Includes to the processing of the crime scene, technical and forensic examination in evidence and similar scientific investigation assistance. So, operation procedure. Pre-operational clearance. No police operation shall be conducted without approval of the chief commander, head of the concerned police unit, office, and the project. Clearance that shall be filled by the team leader of the operation teams prior to the conduct of the operation that shall be approved by the council police unit or commander. So, inter-unit coordination ay personal coordination or by the official representative team leader or TL of local police unit operation outside their territorial jurisdiction, and the National Support Unit or NSU shall coordinate personally through the official representative coordination by filing coordination from prior to the launching of the operation except in cases where the formal inter-unit coordination cannot be moved to the nature and the urgency of the station, such as but limited cross-jurisdiction pursuit operation coordination should be made formally, with the personal coordination from which shall be filled with the concerned operation center of the police. Number 3, coordination by the practical available means of the communication in cases where the formal inter-unit coordination is not feasible. The police unit concerned shall notify terrible police office through any practical available means of communication in any during operation. Requirements of the police operation. Basic requirements. The police operations, like arrest, search and seize, checkpoint, roadblocks, demolition, and civil disturbance management shall be conducted as follows: with the marked police vehicle, lead the police commission officer or PCO, and with the personnel of prescribed police uniform at attire. Use the police during police operation. Use the excuses of prohibited. The expressive use to the driving police operation is prohibited. However, in the lawful performance of duty, a police officer may use necessary police to accomplish his mandated task of enforcing laws and maintaining peace and order. Issue of verbal warning. The police officer must first issue a verbal warning before he could use force against the offender. The police officer identify himself, his intention, and what he wants the offender to do. If the offender is foreign, the verbal warning shall be done in English language, followed by the demonstrative act of the police officers internal to the verbal warning that be done in a loud and clear manner. Non-insurance and verbal warning when accessible if the waivable issue that the verbal warning is accessible in case where the threat to the properly of the already imminent of there is no one option but to use force to the offender. Use of non-lethal weapon. When a suspect is violent or threatening, the less physical measure have been turned deemed inappropriate, and the more extreme but non-deadly measure can be used, such as baton. Application of necessary and reasonable force. During the confrontation with the armed offender, only such a necessary and reasonable force should be applied as work and sufficient to overcome the resistance put by the offender, so be but the clear eventually danger passed by him or the justify the force, and the under of principle of self-defense of relative defense of stranger. Factors to consider of reasonable the force of envelope or develop employed. The police officer, however, is not required to afford offenders attacking him an opportunity for the fair or equal struggles. The reasonable of the police employed will be depend upon the number of aggression, nature, and characteristic of the weapon used. Reasonable of the police officer in charge of the operation. The police officer who is in charge of the operation shall at all times exercise control over the police personnel in the area of operation and shall exhaust all possible means to apply the necessary and reasonable force to protect lives and properties during the armed confrontation. Use of the firearm during the operation. Use of the firearm. The use of firearm is justified if the offender was in imminent danger causing death, injury to the police officer or other persons. To use the firearm also justified under the train of the self-defense must face the real threat on his life and the perils route of avoided must be actual inmate in the real. Parameters to consider the firearm are mooring vehicles and firing at the mooring vehicles. The following parameters should: A. The intent of the suspect to harm the police officer open the prison, the ability of the suspect that harm the country of the police officer, accessibility, approximate, and suspect from the police officer and other person. Produced after the armed contribution or confrontation. Immediately after the armed confrontation, the officer who is among the charge of the operation shall service site the contribution or confrontation, take photographs, check whether the situation is still possess inmate and danger, evacuate the wounded to the nearest hospital, ensure that the all persons who died on the spot move from their original position. Arrested suspect should be kept in isolation. Could deliberating or debriefing of the involved PNP operatives, suspect or submit after the operation report, and ensure psychological stress counseling of all involved in the PNP operation. Rules of Anti-Illegal Drugs Operation. General Policy and Guidelines. The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA was mandated by the law to carry out the provisions of Republic Act 9165, Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002, serve as the implementing arm of the Dangerous Drugs Board and responsible for the efficient and effective enforcement of all provision of any dangerous drugs, and or control the provision of essential chemical as provided in the Act. B. The PNP, however, still the process of the authority conducted anti-illegal drugs operation, provided that the case shall eventually be transferred to the PDEA. The PDEA department or departation is no longer necessary or required for the PNP personnel assigned with the anti-drugs unit. The Philippine National Police is not prevented from the conducting warrantless arrest under Section 5, Rule 113, and search in incident to the lawful arrest under Section 13, Rule 126 of the Rules of the Court. PNP units prior to any anti-drugs operation shall, as far as practicable, accordingly with the PDEA. In any case of PNP anti-drug units, shall coordinate, inform to the PDEA that anti-drug operation within 24 hours from the time of the actual custody of the suspect, size or sale drugs, substance will paraphernalia, and transport equipment used for the illegal activities involvement such as drugs and substance. That regulation update by the PDEA situation case involved said anti-drugs operation of Section 86A and RA of RA 9165. Section 86A of Implementing Rules of Regulation of RA 9165, relationship coordination between PDEA and other agencies. The PDEA shall be lead agency in the enforcement of the Act, while the PNP, NBI, and other law enforcement agency shall continue conduct anti-drugs operation in suspect of the PDEA to support the PDEA, provided that the said agency shall be far as practicable accordingly with the PDEA prior of anti-drug operation, provided further that in any case of agency shall inform to the PDEA that anti-drug operation within the 24 hours from time that actual custody, suspect service says that drug and substance as well as paraphernalia and transport equipment used in illegal activities involving such as drugs. C. The word as far as practicable means that the prior coordination with the PDEA may be done, practicable and accomplished, and may be possible and disable to the performed under the following instance of accordingly manually and disbands in remote place of coordination possible. Number 2, what are the coordination with comprehensive lives and operatives? 3, what are coordination will produce at the apprehension of drug suspect and confession as dangerous drugs and cars? Number 4, when the prior coordination will compose the entire police operation and dealing custody, disposition of evidence. In the healing custody, the disposition of evidence that the prisoners or the person of Section of 21 Republic Act 9165 and its IRR shall be thoroughly observed. B. The apprehensive officer that having an internal custody of the control of drug shall immediately offer the size and confiscation physical, mentally, and photograph at the same prevents of evidence that cause of the person from whom such item were confiscated by the offenders. The physical inventory and photograph shall be conducted at the police where the such warrant is served. Photograph of the process of evidence must taken upon the discovery without moving at the alternatives on the position in the place where there was situation, keep or reading, including the process of including inventory and the weight of dangerous drugs, and the size as offer must mark at evidence with this internal indicating threatened date and time. F. Where the situation requires urgent act on suspected drugs evidence. G. Within 24 hours upon custodial, upon service and dangerous drug plan source of dangerous drug control provision of essential enforcement. H. Containers, packing, equipments of suspect of containing trace amount of drugs including controlled prosecutors of essential chemicals with the considered drugs evidence and shall be submitted in analysis. I. In every negotiation operation, officer shall be designed who shall be responsible for the movement of internal custody and the all drug evidence during that anti-drug operation. Rules of anti-kidnapping operation. Anti-kidnapping operation or AKG is the PNP lead unit in the conduct of anti-kidnapping operations, with the operations is close coordination with the local police under the law enforcement agencies and the community. Type of kidnapping. Kidnapping by the organized crime group criminal or with a ransom. B. Kidnapping the threat groups, terrorists. And C. Kidnapping by other individuals. Concept of operation. Upon receipt of the kidnapping incident report, the police officer shall make the incident recording, deploy first responders and the alerts of concerned authorities, task group like the local terrorist unit, commercial investigation and detection group of the anti-kidnapping group or AKG. Upon initial assessment of the type of kidnapping and upon confirmation that the kidnapping incident is true, the case shall be refunded or retired for the AKG other territorial unit of fire authority. Cybercrime incident response procedures. Cybercrime response procedures in the actual police international or intention in the cybercrime incident where the network guidelines of cybercrimes incident first responder when the responding to the cybercrime on the scene of the crime, the computers or the electronic device, digital media, and the other similar devices, the person that informative for the first responder or effort to be able to protect the size of search and the same to be able to recognize the potential of evidence using the following question as a guidelines to the determined role of commission of the crime. Number 1, it is a contraband of fruit of unit of a crime. It is a tool used for the commission of the crime. It is the intention of crime or being used for the stonish evidence of the crime. Number 4, it is both instrumental to the crime and storage devices for evidence. And B, after identifying the terrorist as the role of computer of the commission of the crime, the following question essential to make any further police investigation should be considered by the first responder. For the standalone connection of the single area connection composition, consult of the computer specialist. If the specialist is not available, the photographer scene is discount of all power and play plugs including the tieback of the computers. Place the injured and overreach the drive stop. Photograph, label, it transport the required part of the comprehensive or virgin cargo prior to transport. Keep it away from the magnet, radio, transmitters, and from other hostile environment. Search and seizure of the wireless telephones. Upon determination of how the wireless telephone device was utilized in the commission of the crime, and one of the legal requirements has been complied with, the following are the guidelines for the conducted search of warrant. Number 1, write down all the information and display of the possible source of photograph. Power down the prior transport. Bring all the power supply cords forth of the scene. Search for the size of electronic paging device. And VFR. Remember that the search stone data and an electronic paging device can be made only when the acceptable or the lawful arrest, when the console have been given, and when the warrant had been issued. Search and size of the smile of face mechanism. Therefore, should remember that if the fax machine is on the power down, may cause loss of the last number of idea or digital understone of number. Also remember that the header line should be the same as the phone line, and that is the possible of meaningless should be sized along with the machine. Search and size of the caller ID device. A, the FR should be able to recognize potential evidence of conducted caller ID devices such as telephone numbers and subscribe information for the incoming phone calls. B, the FR should remember that the interruption of the power supply of the caller ID device may cause loss of data if not protected by the internal battery backup. The FR must also make sure of the document the stone data prior to service of the device, otherwise loss of the data may occur. All size electronic equipment shall be turned over to the Anti-Cybercrime Group or ACG, and in the absence of ACG, to the area, to the local regional province crime laboratory office or R/PCLO. That's all.